Chairman, and Will Michael will start tonight with a question for independent candidate Bernard Sanders, Mayor of Burlington. Will?
Thank you, Brian. Mayor, could you please tell us, I'd like to read you a sentence, if I could, and ask you to fill in the blanks here. If you went to multiple choice, if you went to Washington tomorrow, the first thing that you'd like to work on is blank, because blank.
The first thing that I would like to address as Congressman from Vermont is the grossly unfair distribution of wealth and power in this country. During the last 8 years, the richest people have become increasingly richer, the poorest have become poorer, and the middle class is being squeezed extremely hard. I think that the fact that so few people in this country have so much wealth and so much power is not only unfair, but it is dangerous for democracy, because that wealth translates into political power, it translates into ownership of the media, it translates into ownership of the economy. I believe in democracy, and that means that all people have got to have a fair shake, and that's not what's going on right now. So that is the issue that I would like to tackle most strongly if elected to Congress.
Mr. Sanders, third world debt is estimated to be roughly $420 billion. Much of that owed to financial institutions of the United States. Failure on that debt could bring down not only our economy, but the world economy. What can the U.S. do to help third world countries get a handle on that debt?
Well, as you know, the cause of the debt is that huge banks in the United States, which do not have the capital available to provide funding for affordable housing in the United States, which do not have the funding available to help Americans develop decent jobs, understood that they had the opportunity of making tremendous sums of money by lending huge amounts to undeveloped countries at very, very high interest rates. And what's going on in the world, as the price of commodities fail, these countries are unable to pay back the debt. And then what the large international financial groups are doing is telling these countries to cut back on programs for their people, to lower the amount of food that their people receive, that their workers earn in income, squeeze them as hard as they can so they can pay back their debts to the huge banks. And I think what you're seeing now is a disastrous policy on the part of the huge banks. I think what has got to happen is the United States government, led by the Congress, has got to bring the underdeveloped countries together with the banks and work out a sensible payback program which will not include all of the money. There's no question, you can't get it. Furthermore, we've got to develop economic programs with the third world which will stimulate their country, not drain their countries, so that in fact they can begin to have the wealth to make some paybacks. Out that we are making progress. I would mention to you that we had, as you indicated, 16 corporations, major corporations like IBM, General Motors, both corporations making over $2 billion a year in profits that didn't pay a nickel in taxes. Furthermore, 20 years ago, under the great radical Richard Nixon, the corporations of the United States were paying twice as much in terms of the total federal budget as they are right now. It seems to me very clear that the basic cause of the outrageous deficit that we have now is tax breaks for the rich, tax breaks for the corporations, and it seems to me that you're not being responsible by asking those people to start really paying their fair share.
I'm nervous about this, but I think we agree.
Are you for raising taxes, then?
We're going to have this ongoing debate.
Sure, why not? Gentlemen. It's more interest, you know.
Mayor Sanders, your turn, yes.
I'd like to address my question to Paul Poria. Paul, I'd like to talk a little bit about the minimum wage. As you know, the purchasing power for the average American worker has declined significantly in the last 15 years under Democratic leadership in the Congress and occasional Republican leadership in the White House. And perhaps the group of people who have suffered the most are the minimum wage workers who have not seen a national minimum wage increase since, I believe, certainly before Reagan came into office. Now, the Republicans are in general in opposition. The Democrats have just collapsed on this issue in the Congress. But you have made reference to the fact that you fought for a minimum wage increase here in the state of Vermont. Paul, the Democratic Party has the governorship, has the Senate, has the House. You helped lead the fight for a 10-cent a year minimum wage increase, which is totally irrelevant because, in fact, the effective minimum wage is far higher than that. Do you really think the fight for a 10-cent a year, an hour minimum wage increase is really an act of courage and struggle for the working people of Vermont?